Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to the PG Show, where we talk about all things college football. And today we got to talk about what we should be expecting and who should be the breakout players for this OU defense going into 2022. But before we do that, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. Let me know who you guys think should be the most impactful player on this OU defense. And don't give me any offensive players. We're going to get to them in the next video. All right, today we got to talk about this OU defense, and we got to talk about some of the most impactful players and the role that they should play in this upcoming 2022 season. And the first person that I want to start off with is Danny Stutsman. Now, a lot of people love Danny Stutsman. He is a really funny guy, and he just brings a lot of energy. So he's a 6'3" linebacker, and he's a sophomore this year. And as a freshman, man, did he make an impact for this team. He had 38 total tackles, 21 solo tackles, and 1 sack, and 2 forced fumbles. Like, that's got to be exciting for OU fans to see a freshman linebacker come in and make that kind of impact. Honestly, if it wasn't for the injury that he suffered, I believe it was to his elbow against West Virginia, this man should have been starting the entire season because he made that kind of impact. And you got to ask yourself, what would it have been like if Danny Stutsman would have played the entire season with the likes of some of the other guys that we had on the field? Now, this is interesting because he is the 9th, I would say, best guy on your defense last year. But we lost a lot of production on the defense last year. So you lost, 4 people? They either got drafted or they left, right? And by left, I mean Pat Fields transferred to Stanford as a graduate, right? Pat Fields probably was one of the biggest impacts and losses to the team in terms of just, hey, he had 2 interceptions, and, he had 80 total tackles. 50 of those were solo tackles. And you could say, hey, well, it was Brian Asamoah, right? Brian Asamoah had 1 sack, 80 total tackles, and 55 solo tackles. So you could make an argument. But again, you're looking at it and going, hey, look at all the production that we lost above Danny Stutsman. So Danny Stutsman has a opportunity to come in and play a key factor and a key role into this defense where we're going to be missing a lot of production, right? And so he said in an interview recently with the media that he wants to take a bigger role in this defense this year. He wants to be a leader. And I think, to hear that coming from a sophomore wants to be a leader on this defense where you have 2 fifth-year seniors and it's loaded up with a bunch of other seniors, whether they were transfers or whether they have been here before. That's huge that he wants to go out there and he wants to be a leader and be a spoken leader on this team. And not to mention, he's being coached by one of the best linebacker coaches in this college football landscape, in Ted Roof. I mean, look at Ted Roof's career and the accolades that he has collected in his tenure. Danny Stutsman is going to have a brilliant future if he can put it together, especially with Ted Roof being his linebacker coach, and then you having Brent Venables as your head coach, which is a defensive-minded head coach. Look at all the guys he's put into the league. And then you got Todd Bates as that associate head coach. So I would say, I don't know if he's like the number 1 most impactful guy on the defense this year, but he's definitely, for me, I think one of the guys that's got to make the biggest impact this year, especially since Schmitty is getting a hold of him, and he's going to have him bigger and ready to go by game 1 this season. All right, so next I want to talk about Woodi Washington. So Woodi Washington got an opportunity to go out to the Big 12 Media Days and was selected by Venables and the staff here to be able to represent OU and the team. And this is big, right? Because he plays a position where Oklahoma, I feel like, in my opinion, has been lacking, right? And it's in that cornerback position. You could say, yes, the safeties do as well, but we'll get to the safeties another day. And his career, he's had 20 solo, in his career, he's had 50 solo tackles. 87 of those have been, he's had 87 total tackles and 2 interceptions. And last year, he had 20 solo tackles, only 27 total tackles, but he had the 2 interceptions, right? So if you look at it, the other 2 years, he didn't have a single interception. Last year, you could say, was his breakout year. And just his, I'm trying to think of the word, in his progression as a player. I guess the question is, can he stay healthy? And I think we're going to be able to ask that question about one other guy on this list later, right? You know, he missed 6 games in 2021. In 2019, he did redshirt after 4 games. So I don't know if you say, hey, well, that's him staying healthy. But definitely him missing 6 games in 2021. I don't know if we consider that a concern or not. I think if he's able to be on the field for all 12 games, and potentially 14 or 15. If he's able to stay on the field for all these games this year, he's going to make an impact, right? And we saw that last year in what his production was. Again, being selected to Big 12 Media Day, he's being expected to be a leader on this team. And the cornerback room is actually pretty interesting because you got a lot of young guys coming in there. And so for him to be a leader and for him to be somebody that can go in there and teach those guys, hey, here's how to play the game and here's how you do it right, I think that's important. So redshirt junior, he needs to step up big this year. I think potentially, depending on what kind of year he has, if he's not a 2nd or 3rd round pick in the NFL this year, or a 1st round pick, I don't think he's going to be a 1st round pick, but if he's not at least a 2nd or 3rd round pick, he needs to stay another year. Because with Brent Venables and that coaching staff, if he stays another year after this year, he could potentially be a 1st round pick. We could be talking Woodi Washington, a 1st round pick. All right, the next big guy I want to talk on is really a big guy. 6'2" transfer senior defensive lineman from Tulane, Jeffery Johnson. And personally, I haven't been as high on this guy. I don't know a lot about him, and I didn't get to watch the OU Tulane game because I was driving back from I think it was either a bachelor party or a wedding in Colorado. So I got to miss a lot of that game. I mean, I had it on while I was driving, which don't ever do that. I don't condone that. That's not safe. I just happened to be driving straight roads, so I thought, well, why not try to turn it on and at least see a little bit? But I didn't get to see exactly. So, I mean, I've kind of gone back and watched a little bit of that production and what he did in that game. And let me tell you, he was aggressive against us last year. He applied a lot of pressure to the Rattler and the O-line. And I think that's going to be a problem for a lot of teams that he goes up against, right? I think ESPN had him playing as a nose tackle at Tulane. But again, that's just going to be, he's with his size, he's going to be a problem for anybody that he lines up against. And so in his career, he's had 136 total tackles. 64 of those have been solo. He's had 3 fumble recoveries, 9 sacks in 2021, which was his best year. I do want to point this out to everybody. Every year, he has gotten better. It's not like he's had one good year and then he's might have fallen off. No, every year he has had a good year. And I think that's important. He's gotten better. He develops every year. And so as a senior, I would expect him to have his best year yet, and especially under Brent Venables and Todd Bates, I would expect him to potentially be a 1st round pick. Call me crazy? 1st round pick this year? Especially with the pressure that he can apply on that offensive line. Like, he's a strong dude. He is strong. And again, I think I said at the beginning, people are raving about what he's going to bring and the size that he's going to bring to this defensive line. That's not something that we've necessarily had a lot over the past couple of years. And especially when you lost, let's talk about what we lost on the defensive line, because I think that's important to note here. You lost Perion Winfrey, Isaiah Thomas, and LaRon Stokes. Now, you could say, hey, Preston, LaRon Stokes, maybe not as big of a loss as what you're making it out to be. That's true. But you still have the issue is you lost tenured people on your team, regardless whether they made production or not. And yes, Winfrey and Isaiah Thomas had huge productions to this team. Everybody will remember that hit that Winfrey had on Brock Purdy last year where he completely rocked him, right? I would say that's probably Winfrey's signature play in his career. And I'm happy for Winfrey and I'm happy for Thomas. I wish they would have stayed because, well, hold on. Could Thomas have stayed? I know Winfrey could have stayed. And imagine what that defense would have been like. But that's beside the point. They're gone now. Jeffery Johnson brings back, I think, a little bit of what you lost with Perrion Winfrey leaving. And then you got another guy coming in as a transfer, Jonah Laulu, which is somebody who everybody wanted. I mean, Georgia wanted him, and Georgia just won the national championship. And so, I think that's got to be appealing for OU fans to know that, hey, you got maybe not the most flashy guy, but you got two really good guys on that defensive line that can step up and be leaders and then help us prepare the next generation of defensive linemen that are going to be coming into OU. So the last one I want to talk about is another defensive lineman. I think you guys know where I'm going with this. It's Jalen Redmond. So unfortunately, Jalen Redmond has had a pretty unfortunate career in terms of his health. And this is by no means bashing Jalen Redmond. I think Jalen Redmond's a great guy. He has all the potential in the world. As a five-star defensive lineman out of high school. I haven't looked up who offered him, but I would bet he had offers from the likes of Alabama and Georgia. This man probably could have went as a five-star wherever he wanted. I think it's time that we see the five-star Jalen Redmond that we recruited out of high school. And I get it. He had the blood clot issue, right? So he opted out in 2020. I think they opted in to use his red shirt in 2020. But other than that, he's played 24 games. 24 games. 11 of those games came in 2018 and 2021. And then he had 13 games in 2019. So in 1 year, he was healthy in 2019, and he played 13 games. And then in other 2 years, he played 11. And again, I think it's very, very important that Jalen Redmond stays healthy. If Jalen Redmond can stay healthy, this defensive line is going to be nasty. I said it. This defensive line will be nasty. But I think it's going to all depend on Jalen Redmond staying healthy and being able to go out there and play and put that production out. Show us that five-star defensive lineman. Show us who that is. If you could do that, it's going to be hard to get through this defensive line that we're going to put out there. There's a lot of excitement around this kid. In his career, he's had 20 solo tackles. He's had 48 total tackles, 1 forced fumble, 2 fumble recoveries, 9 solo sacks, and he's had 10 total. I think he even has a touchdown, if I'm correct. So I think it's going to put together. This defensive line, I think, could be really good. But again, I think it kind of hinders on 3 guys, Jonah Lulu, Jalen Redmond, and Jeffery Johnson. You got guys like Reggie Grimes and R. Mason Thomas and Marcus Stripling and Ethan Downs, which I know a lot of you might go, hey, you just had Ethan Downs on your podcast. Why aren't you talking about him? I'll get to that here in a second. We have the new guy, Grayson Halton, coming in. But we all know that Brent Venables is not maybe a fan of playing freshmen. I think he wants to give a lot of these seniors and the older folks an opportunity to go out there and play, especially since they're coming up on their time, right? They don't have a lot more time left. These freshmen got a lot of time. You can redshirt them. They still got 4 more years to develop after that. Well, 4 more years to develop after that. And yeah, this defensive line has the potential this year, which I mean, do you move one of these guys to edge rusher? One of these defensive linemen to edge rusher? I don't know. So those are the four guys that I think on defense are going to make the biggest impact. But let's get into the guys that I didn't mention, because I know some of you guys are going to kind of ask me, hey, Preston, what about these guys? Jonah Laulu. Well, he's going to make an impact, but I don't know. Like, again, I think Jeffery Johnson, I think, makes a bigger impact than he does. And even though Jonah is a senior, I just think Jeffery Johnson's, I think, in my opinion, I just think if Jeffery Johnson has the better season, OU will go farther. Jonah, I think, can have a great season, but I think it's all going to depend on Jalen Redmond and Jeffery Johnson. And Ethan Downs is great. He's a sophomore. And Ethan Downs, don't get me wrong, he's going to be a leader. I think we expect that out of Ethan Downs, though. So, I think Ethan's going to be really crucial to this defense. But we expect Ethan to be a leader. And everybody's seen it. Ethan is a big dude. So, I think, everybody expects something out of Ethan. And you could make the argument, hey, Preston, we expect the same thing out of Jalen Redmond and Jeffery Johnson and those guys. Well, yes, you can make that argument. But Ethan Downs has got a little bit more time on the clock. Like next year, Ethan Downs is going to be a crucial part to this defense. A crucial part to this defense. Especially after he gets another year under his belt, especially with Brent Venables, Todd Bates. Come on. So, not this year, but next year, I'm going to put him on that list for sure. But especially with him being a leader, I think we're good there. So then you got Justin Broiles, which I've got a lot of people that I got a lot of friends that don't like him. And, he's a fifth-year senior. He's one of only two fifth-year seniors on the defense. And I know we got some others on the offense, but I'm talking specifically about the defense. He's one of two. Justin Broiles needs to step up and be a leader on this team. I think Justin Broiles, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong in the chat, please. But if Justin Broiles was part of that 2017 recruiting class, right? The one that we've put so many guys into the league. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. I did not do my homework on that one. But I think, he just needs to step up and be a leader. As a fifth-year senior, no, I don't think you get the benefit of the doubt of being a crucial part to this team. No, you are a crucial part to this defense, regardless. I don't have to predict that you have to be. No, you are. You got to step up and be a leader. And then Billy Bowman, I'm excited to see what this kid can do. I'm excited to see this kid, which I think they moved him into the nickel slot this year. Again, correct me if I'm wrong on that. I'm kind of wondering if we're going to see him maybe play a little bit of receiver this year, and we're still going to see him return kicks or punts this year. And then C.J. Colden coming out of, I think it was Wyoming, and I think he comes in here in the month of June or July. I know he comes in this summer. And so I think those guys, they were right on the edge of making this list, but I was just looking at a list of four. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Do you agree with this list that I just gave you guys? And who do you think is the most impactful or needs to be the most impactful defensive player on this team?